Spotlight, we're diving into a heartwarming children's book that blends imagination, faith, and love. The name of the book, The Magic of the Old Oak Tree. It's written by a terrific author. Her name is Donna S. And in the book, she tells enchanting bedtime stories created to comfort her sons during their father's military deployments. Featuring guardian angels known as Quibblings, this book inspires courage, hope, and the belief that no child is ever truly alone. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her beautiful book. The links are below this interview. Donna, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Logan, for having me.
Wonderful to have you on the show. Your husband was in the military, you were in the military, and tell us a little bit about the genesis of these bedtime stories that you created to comfort your sons.
Absolutely. So we were, as you said, both in the military, deployed a lot because we were what they call a dual military couple. Oftentimes, he would be home and I'd be deployed, or I would be home and he would be deployed. Most times we would be on military installations. We lived on the base, but this time we moved in the local community of South Carolina. And it was so exciting because my husband is from there. We got to live across from my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and it was wonderful. But being away from the DOD or the military defense schools, they didn't get to meet a lot of kids that were familiar with that away lifestyle. And so they weren't warmly embraced in the schools with the other kids. And so when they would come home, they felt so out of place, and it was just draining them emotionally. And with my husband not being home, their dad, the family network was just more broken than we could imagine for them. And so with my work hours, when I would get home, I didn't have a lot of time with them. So I needed them to wind down, relax, and go to sleep. And also, our second son was born with a congenital heart defect called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And so having him extremely sad made it hard for him to continue his healing process. And so the doctors always told us, just always keep him comforted. So we would just do bedtime stories. He would smile, he would go to sleep, and he would just wake up so energized. And that's what I wanted. And so I just read the stories. Well, I didn't read the stories. I actually just made them up. They were in my heart. They just came out of my heart. And on one occasion, I was telling a story to both the boys, and our oldest son, he said, "Mom, these are really good stories. You ought to write a book about it." And I was like, okay. And the younger one, he said, "Yeah, 10 chapters. And I promised them I would do it. And so this book is a promise kept to my sons.
Awesome. That's a beautiful story, an intriguing backstory. It must have been difficult for your kids to be the new kids on the block at the local school when the other kids have been there for years. They have their friends, they're entrenched in the community. So they didn't have that Army brat experience that you get at the DoD schools. And I think that's interesting. And I think it's wonderful how you came up with these stories to comfort your boys. Tell us more about the Quibblings and how they came to life in your stories.
Oh, great question. So the Quibblings, really, I was just using synonyms because I wanted to represent siblings to them, people that they could relate with. But they only had the two, the older brother and the younger brother. And I wanted them to understand about faith and trusting and believing that they're not alone. Even though mom can't be there, dad can't be there, they have some help somewhere else. And so the Quibblings represented angelic siblings to them. And the story with the Quibblings, where they were away from their heavenly home, but they had a mission, which was to bring joy and life to other people, especially little children like themselves. The Quibblings, when they got to be of the age of 12, and we know in the heavenly realm, they don't have light, they're eternal, but I put an age on them that matched when children get to the age of understanding. And so they were below the age of 12, just like my sons. And so they could relate to these children being away because they were away from their family nest with the dad out of the nest. And additionally, I created the Steimers, which was the father was Mr. Steimer, and the mother happened to be, without the children being aware of it, married to Mr. Steimer. And they had the responsibility of helping be there for them, to be that parental guide that they would have, even the extended family network beyond just mom and dad, because we were fortunate to be around his grandparents. So I weaved all of that in the story, and the boys just loved it. And then they were very energetic. They were very imaginative. And so I included the things that they like most: race cars, the favorite colors, playing drums. Jacob loved it. And basketball. The oldest one, he loved playing basketball. So all the things that they love, I escalated it, made it higher, and the quibblings brought it to life for them. And if you could just see the joy in their eyes when I would tell the stories. And I always ended with the children getting extremely tired and sleepy and going to bed. And they went to bed. It was amazing every single time.
Great. And they had great dreams because you had talked about all the wonderful things that they love and many, many children love, which is the impact of these books as well as the great faith. How important was it to incorporate faith in your stories?
Extremely, because I wanted them to know that not only are they not alone, but if they themselves could trust and believe that they are not alone and they have help, people that love them, quibblings, angelic help from heaven, there to help them. Then, whenever they were sad, even through school or whatever happened through the day, they could, in their heart, reach back to that moment and say, you know what, I can change this. And that's some of the storyline in it, that every single story, they could change the narrative by tapping into their own faith. And so, as a young mother raising young children, not a single parent, but because of my husband being deployed, I was with them by myself. I needed them to trust that when mom and dad can't be there, or when the grandparents can't be there, you're not alone. And you can change your story by tapping into your own faith.
Absolutely. That's a good reminder to all of us that we're never alone, that when we walk with God, we're never alone. He's always watching over us. Why did you choose an oak tree as a central symbol of the book?
Awesome. So my husband's family, they live in the country, and there's trees everywhere, and they have just so much land and these big oak trees. And so I was connecting the environment that we lived in the story. And so we always taught them, don't go out by yourself, don't just trust strangers. And so all of that's in the narrative of the book. But the oak tree was phenomenal. So my father-in-law, he really was a construction builder on his own. And so oftentimes he would be out there by the oak tree and doing different things so they could relate to that. And so we just added in the mystery that the inside the oak tree, which was so huge, there was this world inside of that. And that world literally, I represented heaven for them. When they went in, when they finally got inside, the streets, the floor was gold, and the diamond windows represented the light of heaven. So all of that was so they can see this imagined place, and they could go there. And in a way, that was prayer. And so when we are praying before God, we are there in the heaven of heavens. And so that's what I was trying to give my children, that understanding.
Wonderful. I love that you blended faith into this book. I think it's so comforting, particularly at bedtime, to have a story that incorporates faith. It's comforting to children. I remember that was when my mom would pray with me, she tucked me in at night and sat down by the side of my bed and prayed. And those are some of the best memories I have with my mom, story time and prayer time. We prayed for everybody around the world. I mean, the Vietnam War was going on. We would pray for our soldiers overseas, so people were praying for you when you were deployed as well, and your husband was deployed. Have you envisioned this book, perhaps, or these stories being turned into videos or cartoons or some kind of series for children?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when my husband and when he finally came home from his deployment, I told him what I was doing with the kids and the promise I made. So we began to work it together. And when it was finished and published, my husband and I came into complete agreement, and we prayed and we asked God that it does come into a movie. And so children can see it in life. And so some of the various publishers I've had the blessed opportunity to work with, they helped me do a trailer. And when I saw the trailer and see it come to life, I was like, wow, this is amazing. They
Yeah.
incorporated our military lifestyle, the busyness, and how the children, they even let my sons use when their voices were still kind of child voice.
Yeah.
Be the voiceover. And so they were saying about the faith and just hearing them say, heaven is real, angels are real. And they
Mhm.
embrace that. So, yeah, we could see that turning into a movie for children.
Awesome. So great. You've done the hard part. You've created the stories. You've released the work. So Hollywood, if you're listening, here's a great series of stories that would make a terrific animated series for children because it addresses something that's lacking today, which is great faith, as well as wonderful imaginative stories with great characters, great settings that children and parents will just love. Um, how old are your sons now?
So my oldest is 22 and the youngest is 20. And
Wow.
yes, and it was nothing but the prayers and the faith because, as I mentioned, the youngest had a heart condition.
Yeah.
He had to have 3 open heart surgeries just to live. And it was touch and go for his first surgery was when he was born. His second surgery, he was 3 months old. And his third surgery, he was 3 years old. And so in each phase, there was no guarantee that he would live past the next month. And so for him to be 20 is just amazing. And his big brother was always there. In fact, that's one of the chapters in the book, how when he actually got sick while I was writing this story. And so I incorporated that, how his big brother was there to just be there to protect him. And so very close. The boys just very close.
Amazing, amazing. Can you take us back to the moment that you learned that your unborn son would be born with a severe heart condition, which left him at that point essentially with half a heart, right?
Yep, and he still has just a half a heart today. He'll always have medication, but he's so strong and doing exceptionally well. You wouldn't know it to see him. But when we got the message, the information, my husband and I were in Germany. We were stationed there, and I went, for the routine ultrasound. You're thinking I'll just braze right through this. The first son was born with no complications whatsoever, so I was like, okay, I'll just get this done. And then they said that they couldn't see one of the chambers in his heart. And I was like, man, over here in Germany and this faulty equipment, that's what I was thinking, but not the case. It really was our son. And so I cried once, and that was
Mm.
one cry, and that was it. I got it out my system. I prayed, my husband and I prayed. And then when we got weak and we struggled, we tapped into our source of faith, which was our mothers.
Mm.
And my husband's mom, my mom, they were alive, and they were just, my mom is passed now. My mother-in-law is still with us and doing well. But our father-in-law, my husband's dad, has passed away. But they were our strength. And just like we gave strength to my sons when they were struggling at school, those parents gave strength to us to help us hold on to our faith that God was going to see us through that thing. And so, yes, it was scary. It was touch and go. But the faith and the prayers of the righteous helped us through.
Wonderful, wonderful. It was a 3-year journey for Jacob,
Yes.
multiple heart surgeries at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's our second home, children.
Yeah. You spend
Shop.
too much time there. When you start knowing the nursing staff too well, you know
Yes.
you're at the hospital too often.
Mhm.
Amazing, amazing. What